What if I told you that our planet's air conditioning system is under threat? Yes, you heard it right. Our Earth has its very own natural cooling system, and it's found in the frosty glacial landscapes that cloak its poles and mountain ranges. Imagine glaciers as colossal, frozen reservoirs. They don't merely add beauty to our planet, but they play a crucial role in maintaining our planet's temperature. Acting much like an air conditioner, glaciers reflect sunlight back into space, helping to cool the Earth. Not just that, they store about 69% of the world's fresh water. They feed rivers and lakes, quenching the thirst of countless species, including us, humans. But now let's delve into the cold reality. These icy guardians are melting, and they're melting at an alarming rate. The vast white expanses are giving way to blue waters. Every minute, the equivalent of 5 Olympic-sized swimming pools worth of ice is lost. Every day, it's about 7,200. Every year, an astonishing 3,864,000. And the numbers are only increasing. Why is this a cause for concern, you might ask? Well, when these icy behemoths melt, they don't just disappear. They transform into water, raising sea levels around the world. This leads to increased coastal erosion, greater storm surge damage, and more frequent high tide flooding. They're not just flooding our lands, but also our lives with numerous challenges. Beyond the physical changes, the ecological impacts are profound. Animals that rely on the cold, like polar bears and penguins, are losing their homes, and let's not forget, the human communities that have lived in harmony with these icy landscapes for centuries are now facing an uncertain future. The glaciers, our planet's air conditioners, are under threat. The Earth's thermostat is being tampered with, and the consequences are already being felt. The question is, how did we even get here? As we venture further into this topic, keep in mind that every piece of ice that melts, every animal that loses its home, and every community that is threatened is a part of our shared reality. This is not just about glaciers, it's about our planet, our home. To understand the present, we must delve into the past. Let's journey back in time, shall we? Picture the world during the last ice age, about 20,000 years ago, an era where vast ice sheets and glaciers dominated the Earth's landscape. Fast forward to the Holocene epoch around 12,000 years ago, a period that marked the end of the Ice Age. As the climate warmed, these colossal ice bodies began their slow retreat. Move ahead to the mid-19th century, the end of the Little Ice Age, a period known for its cooler temperatures. Scientists have traced the start of significant glacial melting to this time. From this point on, the timeline of Thaw accelerates. As we step into the 20th century, the pace of glacial melt picks up speed. The evidence? The numerous retreating glaciers worldwide. Take, for instance, the Rhone Glacier in Switzerland, once a mighty river of ice, now a remnant of its former self. Or the Muir Glacier in Alaska, which has retreated over 31 miles since the late 19th century. The late 20th century brought with it an era of heightened scientific interest and research. Advanced technology and data collection methods allowed for more precise measurements and observations. This period marked the discovery of a disturbing trend. The rate of glacial melt was not just steady, it was increasing. The turn of the 21st century saw an unprecedented acceleration in the rate of glacial melt. Researchers from around the globe reported alarming data. The World Glacier Monitoring Service, for example, reported in 2015 that the rate of ice loss from glaciers had reached its highest level since record-keeping began. Key events and milestones punctuate this timeline of Thaw. The collapse of the Larsen B ice shelf in Antarctica in 2002. The separation of the A68 iceberg from the Larsen C ice shelf in 2017. These are not isolated incidents, but rather they are stark reminders of the relentless progression of glacial melt. As we stand here in 2024, the timeline of Thaw stretches behind us, a testament to the undeniable reality of our warming world. Every year, new data adds to this timeline, further cementing the fact that our glaciers are melting, and they are melting fast. The timeline paints a chilling picture, doesn't it? But what does this mean for us? The ripple effect of melting glaciers is far-reaching. Indeed, the environmental impacts of melting glaciers are profound and pervasive. The first impact that probably springs to mind is rising sea levels. As glaciers melt, the water doesn't just disappear, it flows into the oceans, causing sea levels to rise. Imagine pouring a glass of water into a full bathtub. The water level in the tub rises, right? That's what's happening to our oceans. Now, you might think, a little extra water never hurt anybody, but in fact even minor increases in sea levels can have devastating consequences. Many of the world's largest cities are coastal, and as sea levels rise, they are at increased risk of flooding. The loss of land is more than an inconvenience. It's a threat to homes, infrastructure, and lives. The melting of glaciers doesn't just affect humans, though. It also impacts the habitats of cold climate animals. Polar bears, penguins, seals. These species rely on icy habitats for survival. As glaciers melt, these animals are losing their homes. It's a heartbreaking reality that many of these species are now facing the threat of extinction. And let's not forget about the changes in ocean currents. The influx of fresh water from melting glaciers can disrupt the balance of salinity in the oceans. You see, ocean currents are driven by differences in temperature and salinity. When the balance is upset, it can alter these currents, which in turn affects weather patterns and the distribution of nutrients essential for marine life. So, you see, the impacts of melting glaciers are far-reaching. They're affecting our oceans, our weather, our wildlife, and even our cities. It's a ripple effect that touches every corner of our planet. But it's not just about the environment, though, it's about us too. The fate of our glaciers is intrinsically tied to the fate of humanity. The choices we make today will shape the world we live in tomorrow. And that's a responsibility we can't afford to ignore. It's a domino effect, and we are the last domino. When we speak of the rapid melting of Earth's glaciers, we're not just talking about a loss of stunning icy landscapes. The impacts are much closer to home, affecting our daily lives in ways we may not even realize. Imagine the city you live in, the places you frequent, the streets you walk down every day. Now picture them submerged underwater. This is the reality for many coastal cities as sea levels rise due to melting glaciers. Iconic cities like Venice and Miami are already experiencing this phenomenon, known as sunny day flooding. And as the glaciers continue to melt, this threat only becomes more imminent. But the effects of glacier melt aren't just confined to coastal regions. It's a global issue, impacting even those far from the shorelines. The increased fresh water from melting glaciers can disrupt ocean currents, leading to unpredictable and extreme weather events. This can have a profound impact on agriculture, putting food security at risk. Farmers around the world rely on predictable weather patterns to grow our food. When these patterns are disrupted, crop yields can decrease, leading to food shortages and increased prices. Moreover, we're seeing climate-driven displacement on an unprecedented scale. As sea levels rise and weather patterns become more extreme, many are left with no choice but to abandon their homes. This displacement is creating a new class of refugees, termed climate refugees, who are forced to navigate the uncertainties of resettlement and integration into new communities. The impacts of glacier melt, therefore, extend far beyond the environment. They seep into every aspect of our lives, from the food we eat to the places we live, and even the stability of our societies. The effects are not just distant threats. They are happening now, and they are accelerating. The consequences are dire, but where do we go from here? We are in a crisis, but not all hope is lost. As we stand on the precipice of change, it's essential to remember that there are ways we can combat the melting of glaciers. It calls for concerted efforts, a combination of climate change, mitigation strategies, a drastic reduction in greenhouse gas emissions, and a significant emphasis on international cooperation. Climate change mitigation is a broad term, but in essence, it's about taking actions to reduce the long-term risk and hazards of climate change. This can be anything from converting to renewable energy sources like wind and solar, to implementing carbon capture technologies that can literally pull carbon dioxide out of the air. It's about being proactive, not reactive, and doing our part to slow the rate of global warming. But how can we slow global warming without addressing the elephant in the room, or rather, the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere? Greenhouse gas emissions are a major factor in the accelerated pace of glacier melting. Cutting down on these emissions is key. This means shifting away from fossil fuels, promoting energy efficiency, and encouraging sustainable practices in industries like agriculture and manufacturing. Yet this isn't a battle any one country can win alone. Climate change doesn't respect borders, and neither should our efforts to combat it. International cooperation is paramount. The Paris Agreement, a global pact to combat climate change, is a prime example of what can be achieved when nations come together with a common goal. However, let's not forget that change starts at home. Simple actions like reducing our energy consumption, recycling, or choosing public transport can make a world of difference. We all have a stake in this, and we all have a role to play. In the fight against glacier melting, knowledge is our greatest weapon. The more we understand about the causes and consequences, the better equipped we are to make informed decisions and take meaningful action. Each one of us has a role to play, and it starts with understanding. Scene script. Knowledge is power, and in this case, our planet's lifeline. Let's delve into the scientific underpinnings of glacier melting. To truly grasp what's happening, we must first understand the greenhouse effect. Picture the Earth wrapped in a blanket of gases, including carbon dioxide, methane, and water vapor. These gases trap the sun's warmth, creating a natural greenhouse effect that keeps our planet habitable. Without it, Earth would be a chilly negative 18 degrees Celsius on average, a temperature not conducive to life as we know it. However, the thickening of this greenhouse blanket is where the problem arises. When we burn fossil fuels for energy, coal, oil, and natural gas, we release more carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. This increased concentration of carbon dioxide thickens our greenhouse blanket, trapping more heat than is necessary. This phenomenon is known as global warming. Now, let's connect the dots between global warming and our melting glaciers. Glaciers are huge, slow-moving rivers of ice that form in areas where more snow falls in winter than melts in summer. With global warming, the balance is tipped. Warmer temperatures mean less snowfall and more melting, leading to a net loss of glacier ice. But here's the kicker. This process is self-perpetuating. As glaciers melt, they reveal darker land or water surfaces underneath, which absorb more sunlight than the shiny, reflective ice. This absorption further raises temperatures, leading to more melting, a vicious cycle known as the ice albedo feedback loop. Human activities play a significant role in this process. Our insatiable appetite for fossil fuels, rampant deforestation, and unsustainable agricultural practices all contribute to the thickening of our greenhouse blanket. These activities increase the levels of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere, intensifying global warming and accelerating glacier melting. Furthermore, when glaciers melt, they don't just disappear, they add to the world's water supply. This additional water flows into oceans, contributing to rising sea levels. The meltwater also carries with it nutrients and sediments, altering the chemistry and biology of downstream ecosystems. Understanding the science behind glacier melting gives us a clearer picture of the challenges we face. But remember, knowledge alone can't save our glaciers. It's the fuel for action, the spark that ignites change. We must use this knowledge to transition to renewable energy sources, reforest our lands, and adopt sustainable agricultural practices. We've seen the power of collective action in the past. The hole in the ozone layer started to heal when nations came together to phase out CFCs. We can do it again. We can slow the melting of our glaciers and give our planet a fighting chance. Understanding is the first step, but action is the key. It's time to turn our knowledge into action. We've delved into the chilling reality of our rapidly melting glaciers and the dire consequences this poses for our environment and humanity alike. Now we pivot towards the actionable steps we can take to mitigate this crisis. It's essential to remember that every action counts, no matter how small they may seem. Let's start with reducing our carbon footprints. This can be as simple as choosing to walk, bike, or use public transportation instead of driving. Opt for renewable energy sources where possible, and try to reduce, reuse, and recycle as much as possible. Invest in energy-efficient appliances and limit the use of heating and air conditioning. Eat less red meat and more plant-based foods. Each of these steps, when taken collectively, can significantly decrease the amount of greenhouse gases we release into the atmosphere. Next, let's talk about supporting climate-friendly policies. This means voting for leaders who prioritize climate change solutions and holding them accountable once they're in office. Advocate for renewable energy initiatives, stricter emissions standards, and the protection of natural resources. Use your voice to demand change because change starts from the ground up. Lastly, we need to spread awareness. Educate your friends, family, and community about the importance of glaciers and the risks posed by their rapid melting. Share credible information on social media, start conversations, and challenge climate change skepticism whenever you encounter it. Knowledge is power, and the more people understand about this crisis, the more likely they are to take action. It's a monumental task, yes, but not an insurmountable one. We faced great challenges before and emerged victorious. Now we need to do it again. For the sake of our glaciers, our environment, and our future. Remember, the change begins with you, and with change comes hope. Hope for a future where our glaciers continue to stand tall and magnificent. A testament to the resilience and determination of humanity. The fate of our glaciers and our planet is in our hands. The future is not set in ice, but we can change its course. As we peer into the crystal ball of our planet's future, we see a spectrum of possibilities for our glaciers, each scenario dependent on our current trends and actions. It's a tale of two futures, one of continued indifference and inertia, and one of collective action and responsibility. Let's imagine for a moment a world where we continue to turn a blind eye to the plight of our glaciers. A world where greenhouse gas emissions remain unchecked and the Earth's average temperature continues to rise. In this world, the glaciers we know today would be nothing more than a memory, their icy grandeur replaced by barren landscapes and rising sea levels. This is a future we cannot afford to embrace. Alternatively, we could choose a different path. A future where we wield the power of collective action and responsibility. Where every individual, every community, every nation understands the value of our icy guardians and takes action to preserve them. Here we see a world where our glaciers continue to glisten under the sun, their slow and steady melt, contributing to the natural water cycle, not disrupting it. The choice is ours to make. It's about more than just saving ice. It's about safeguarding our planet's future. It's about ensuring that our children and our children's children can marvel at these frozen giants and understand the delicate balance of our planet's ecosystems. Imagine, if you will, a world where we all take up the mantle of guardianship for our glaciers. A world where every light switched off, every car trip forgone, every tree planted is a step towards safeguarding our icy landscapes. This is a world where our actions today carve out a future of hope and resilience for our glaciers. We've seen the consequences of inaction, and now we must rise to the challenge. The health of our glaciers is a reflection of the health of our planet, and right now, our planet needs us. Our glaciers are melting, but our resolve to save them should not. Together, we can rewrite this narrative.